I would cue the theme, but I really don't want to get a copyright strike. Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to a very special episode of my show. Even though it's not part of Superhero Binge, still on my break. This is gonna be a bit of a long break too. You read the title right. I can't believe it's taken me this long to talk about these movies, but I recently saw the newest installment, so I figured, what the hell, may as well do it now. Nope. Today, I will be talking about a very special film that I hold very near and dear to myself. One of my all-time favorite movies, and is one that I can watch any day, anytime, and never be bored. Today, I will be talking about 1993's Jurassic Park. You can even see me in the reflection there. And joining me today, I forgot to put him in the title screen, but whatever, I'll fix that later. Joining me today is fellow dinosaur fan Jackie Boy from BigJackFilms.
Now you do plan to have dinosaurs in your dinosaur Jurassic Park review, right? Hello? Hello? Yes?
I really hate that man.
I am here to discuss this movie with Nick. It's about damn time you started talking about these fucking movies. They're fucking amazing. It's Jurassic Park. It's Jurassic Park, somewhere near the dark. Holy shit! Oh, Jurassic Park, one of my favorite movies of all time, definitely in the top 5. Probably one of the best Steven Spielberg movies ever made. Probably the best dinosaur movie ever goddamn made. Like, every dinosaur movie up from, like, the early days of film onwards have led to this film. There's a reason why it's groundbreaking. There's a reason why it is a big moneymaker, a franchise, a phenomenon. Because it got people back into dinosaurs. Holy shit.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, I don't know, do we discuss where we were first introduced to it? Because, I've got a story on that.
So, my history with the original Jurassic Park. This was one of my childhood movies. I saw this at a very, very, very young age. I do not remember how old I was when I first saw this movie. I just know I had been seeing this movie so many times when I was a child. It was like a staple of my childhood. It seemed like every few days I was watching some Jurassic Park movie because I was a young lad when the first 3 films came out. And I lived and breathed dinosaurs when I was young. Even up till the age of like 12 or 13, I lived and breathed dinosaurs. At one point, I did want to be a paleontologist. For those of you who don't know, a paleontologist is somebody that studies ancient animals or extinct animals, specifically dinosaurs, though they also do study like Ice Age creatures, creatures before the dinosaurs. Paleo means ancient or prehistoric. So I did want to be a paleontologist at some point, and I would study dinosaurs and read books about dinosaurs, watch movies about dinosaurs. The greatest movies about dinosaurs of all, of course, being the Jurassic Park series. And overall, the Jurassic Park series is a staple of myself as a human being. I would not be the person that I am if I was not introduced to Jurassic Park at such a young age. It's one of very few things that me and my father have in common. It's one of the things that me and my mom have in common. Anybody that I know is at least somewhat of a fan of the Jurassic Park series in some way, shape, or form. So thankfully, it is something that I can, well, except for my grandparents, they're just squares. But it is something that I can relate to with anybody that I've met at least some level. Jurassic Park is a very, very important film. And the franchise itself is a very important thing to me. So, Jackie boy, go right ahead.
So for me, I was actually 1 year old when the first film came out, so I never saw that in theaters. I was partially more introduced to Jurassic Park. I mean, I always had a fascination with dinosaurs as a kid. Probably one of my first dinosaur things I ever got into was like The Land Before Time. You know, which, by the way, turned 30 today. Turned 30, that film. So, awesome, great movie. But to the point, I was more introduced to Jurassic Park thanks to some old friends I had when I was a young boy, when I was a young kid. I used to go and like hang out with these friends when we were in fucking kindergarten and stuff back in the day. And he had in his basement all these Jurassic Park toys that we used to play with, and we just put on the movie on VHS, which I have the VHS with me, which is great. Like like when I think VHS, I think Jurassic Park. So I remember really at the time watching it, I was fascinated with the dinosaurs, and they looked real. They were fantastic. That movie scared the shit out of me. It freaked me out. Nightmare fuel from the raptors alone.
The movie never scared me per se, but it did always make me a little nervous, and I actually discovered what vibrations in water meant at a very young age.
Yeah,
I'll explain that for those of you who
Jurassic
haven't
Park,
seen this movie. I'll explain that later in the plot.
Yeah. So with Jurassic Park, you know, I really didn't start getting into it until The Lost World came out, but we'll talk about that another time, hopefully. I don't know, Nick, if you want me in for the rest of the series, I can do that. So for me, it's like,
I gotta have Sean here for at least one, but we'll see.
Yeah. It's always been a staple of my childhood. It's pure nostalgia. It's pure 90s. The special effects, like, were at the highest point of success. And not only did Jurassic Park really overhype my dinosaur sensibility and knowledge, but it was one of the first movies I bought with my own pocket money on DVD with a box set with the second film. And just watching the documentaries on the making of the film really sparked my interest in filmmaking at a young age, and like wanted me to kind of get into that. Like, I remember after watching the first documentary, actually hosted by James Earl Jones, that was one of the first documentaries. Yeah, go watch that documentary. You can find it on YouTube. He hosts it. For me, it was one of the first major making of documentaries I ever watched, and it really kind of made me think, you know what? I want to make movies like Jurassic Park. It had that kind of effect on me, where it's like dinosaurs and action and all this stuff. So the franchise has always been a very important thing to me, both in the films themselves and in the merchandise. The toys are fantastic. Probably the definitive dinosaur toys of our generation.
Let's not talk about that. Now you're really starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, but yeah, the Sega game, I could go on forever. And if you guys want to see my perspective on it, I'll put a plug in on my reviews. But anyway, yeah, Jurassic Park, one of the greatest films ever made, in my opinion.
Agreed.
It has a massive impact.
Getting into the plot. So Jurassic Park is based on the 1990 novel of the same name by Michael Crichton. Its screenplay was written by both Michael Crichton and David Koepp, or how do you pronounce his name?
David Koepp.
David Koepp.
He's one of those, it's interesting, he's one of those people that Spielberg hires to kind of add a little bit of a lightheartedness to a dark, serious story.
Yeah, that kind of goes into...
David Koepp also did the same thing for Spider-Man.
So, let's see.
Yeah, David Koepp also wrote the stuff for Spider-Man.
Before Crichton's novel was even published, 4 studios had put in bids for its film rights, and with the backing of Universal, Spielberg acquired the rights for $1.5 million before its publication in 1990, and Michael Crichton was hired on for an additional $500,000 to adapt the novel for the screen. Koepp was brought in to write the final draft, which let out much of the novel's both exposition and its violence. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I'll get to that a little later. And also made numerous changes to the characters, most of which I can kind of agree with. let's see. Another.
You know, I
When
looked
Jurassic
at
Park
it
was
and spare no expense, but I didn't think they were going to take it that fucking literal.
Jurassic Park went on to gross $914 million worldwide in its original theatrical run, becoming the highest grossing film of 1993, and was also the highest grossing film ever at the time until Titanic came out 4 years later. Yeah, 4 years later.
Yeah.
And also following its 3D re-release in 2013 to celebrate its 20th anniversary, Jurassic Park became the 17th film in history to surpass $1 billion in ticket sales. To my knowledge, and Jack's as well, that is the most successful re-releasing of a film to date.
It literally beat out the special editions of Star Wars back in 97.
So let me go into a little bit of a spiel. I've never understood why studios don't re-release some of their older, more successful movies in theaters. And here's a few examples that do prove that re-releasing movies is successful. In 1938, Universal, after stopped making horror movies in 1936 following Dracula's Daughter and The Invisible Ray, Universal re-released both the 31 versions of Dracula and Frankenstein, which proved to be a big hit, and it's what revitalized Universal's horror movie cycle. Following after that, they made Son of Frankenstein, beginning the second phase of Universal's horror movie cycle. In 1952, the original 33 King Kong was re-released in the theaters, and it was a gargantuan success.
It was censored to shit.
Regardless, it was a gargantuan success, and it surpassed the 33 release of King Kong in its box office. In 2000, the original Exorcist was re-released into theaters, and it made a little bit of money there. The special editions of Star Wars were re-released, and those were a big hit. And then, of course, there's a Jurassic Park. The re-release of E.T., that made some money. And then, of course, there's a re-releasing of Jurassic Park, which apparently now I just learned was a gargantuan hit. So I've never understood why why film studios don't re-release older successful movies that they have. Like, they tried to do that. But
I can kind of explain that, Nick. I can kind of explain
don't care.
That because
I know what you're going to say, and I don't care.
No. It's not what you say. It's not what you think. Not the 3D part. That's not what I'm going to say. Not the 3D part. But during the early 2010s, from I'd say 2010 till about 2013, 2014, there was a huge number of movies being re-released. Not just Jurassic Park, but a lot of Disney movies. The Lion King was another major re-release hit. The Toy Story, they did a double feature of Toy Story 1 and 2 a year before Toy Story 3 came out, and that made money. So there was always a niche for re-releases, but then for some reason they started dying down. I don't know why. Maybe again, I don't care about the 3D thing, but there are some theater chains that do what are called phantom screenings, where they will show an older movie for one night only. But it's one of those things like say if they decide to re-release Jaws in theaters for 2 weeks, fuck yeah, I'm going to see that shit. If they re-release Back to the Future again for 2 entire trilogy, hell yeah, I'm on board. I will go see that. And same with Jurassic Park or Star Wars. They're monumental movies that people will pay to go see in theaters and not just put on the fucking DVD for.
So, finally getting to the plot of Jurassic Park. Now, okay, quick disclaimer, I actually have not read the book. Both of the books, I have not read them. I'm honestly a little scared to, because I know how different they are. And I'm worried that if I do read the books, it may tarnish the movies for me. That may sound stupid. I just don't want to risk it, so I probably will not read the books.
Let me put it like this, Nick. I've read a quarter of the first book, and I did spoil myself on most of the kills, which I will admit the only downside is they are way more violent and darker. They're not Jurassic Park kills. They're Carnosaur kills. So,
let's get into the plot of Jurassic Park. Industrialist John Hammond, played by Richard Attenborough. He's the dead one, right?
Yeah, he's the one that croaked a few years ago.
Okay. And his bioengineering company known as InGen have created a theme park featuring cloned dinosaurs and prehistoric plants called Jurassic Park. Title drop. On Isla Nublar, which is a Costa Rican island. After one of the dinosaur handlers is killed by a Utahraptor, it's a velociraptor, but it's more like a Utahraptor, the park's investors, represented by lawyer Donald Gennaro, demand that experts visit the park to certify that it is a safe place to be. Admittedly, with animals that are this vicious and this difficult to control, I kind of can't blame them. That's just me. So to perform the certification inspections, Gennaro invites mathematician and chaos theorist and Jackie Boy's favorite character, Ian Malcolm, played by the phenomenal Jeff Goldblum. While Hammond...
That's chaos theory. The best star of this series is here is what...
While Hammond invites paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant and paleobotanist prehistoric plants, Dr. Ellie Sattler, played by Sam Neill and Laura Dern, respectively. And upon arrival, the group is shocked, one of the best moments in cinema history, when they see a fully grown live Brachiosaurus. Ironically, it's
holy fucking shit, it's a dinosaur. Jesus Christ, what the fuck?
Ironically, though, I think it's the only dinosaur that we see in this movie that's actually from the Jurassic period. Not a problem. It's just something to point out there.
Weird part. Isn't that the weird part? Well, no, actually, the Dilophosaurus was from the Jurassic period. No, late Jurassic.
Early Jurassic. Okay, so it's one of two.
Yeah.
But most of the dinosaurs in this movie are from the Cretaceous period. So anyway.
I was going to say, watch it, Nick. You're suffering Jeff Goldblum syndrome.
Shut up. Jesus. At the park's visitor center, the group learns that the cloning was accomplished by extracting dinosaur DNA from mosquitoes preserved in amber, which is fossilized tree sap. DNA from frogs was used to fill in gaps in the dinosaur's genome. To prevent breeding, all the dinosaurs are genetically modified to be female. Malcolm scoffs at this idea, saying that it will inevitably break down. And the group witnesses the hatching of a baby velociraptor and visits the raptor enclosure. During a luncheon, the group debates the ethics of cloning in creation of the park, with Dr. Malcolm giving a harsh warning about the implications of genetic engineering in general. I used to hate this part when I was a kid, but now as an adult, I eat this scene up. We'll talk about that a little later when we get to the pros.
I want to just break out for a sec. This movie is probably one of the most quotable movies in cinema history.
Yes, agreed.
Every line, I know so many lines from that. Like, and I love Jeff Goldblum when he says, "Well, this is just a building of a dam. Dinosaurs had their shot, and nature selected them for extinction." It's so quotable. Like every punctuation of how they pronounce it, you can. Like even Sam Neill is just, like, how come I possibly have the slightest idea what to expect?
The group is then joined by Hammond's grandchildren, Lex and Tim Murphy, much to Dr. Grant's chagrin, them being played by Joseph Mazzello and Ariana Richards, respectively. Let's see. While Hammond oversees the tour from the park's control room as the group goes on a tour of the park. The tour does not go as planned, with most of the dinosaurs failing to appear and the group encountering a sick Triceratops, which is completely animatronic. More on that later. It is cut short, however, when a tropical storm approaches Isla Nublar, and most of the park employees leave from the mainland on a boat while the visitors return to their electric tour vehicles, except Sattler, who stays behind with the park's veterinarian to study the Triceratops. Jurassic Park's lead computer programmer, Dennis Nedry, played by Wayne Knight, this fucker, has been bribed by a man named Dodgson. We got Dodgson here, who is a man working for Hammond's corporate rival to steal fertilized dinosaur embryos. Nedry deactivates...
By the way, something I want to point out next. Something I want to point out. Have you ever noticed that in any of the sequels, Dawson Cork never shows up again?
Yeah, I just kind of brush it aside. I don't really care. So Nedry deactivates the entire security system for the park to gain access to the embryo storage room and stores the embryos inside a canister cleverly disguised as a shaving cream bottle. Fun fact, one of the ideas for a sequel to this movie was to be essentially a big rescue mission for somebody to retrieve that damn shaving cream bottle.
And they did that with the Telltale Jurassic Park game.
Which wasn't a bad game, actually.
Yeah, it's got Asajj Ventress as the main female lead. Hell yeah, it's going to be good.
The power goes out, and the tour vehicles become stuck because of it. In the most inconvenient place of all, the T-Rex paddock. So most of the park's electric fences are deactivated as well, allowing the park's T-Rex to escape and attack the group. Hands down, my favorite scene in the entire franchise, potentially.
It's probably the most iconic scene in the series as a whole.
We'll talk about it more
and then roars.
We'll talk about it when we get to the pros and cons of the film. But anyway, so the T-Rex escapes and attacks the group. Grant, Lex, and Tim manage to escape, while the T-Rex injures Malcolm and devours Gennaro. Rather brutally. On his way to deliver the embryos to the island docks, Nedry becomes lost in the rain, and he crashes his Jeep into a ditch, and when trying to free himself, he encounters a Dilophosaurus and is promptly devoured by it. Sattler helps the park's game warden, Robert Muldoon, played by Bob Peck, to search for survivors, but they only find Malcolm just before the T-Rex returns. In a pretty entertaining chase scene that's decently long. Grant,
you think they'll have that on the tour?
I was about to say that. Grant, Tim, and Lex take shelter in a big treetop, and they later discover the broken shells of dinosaur eggs the next morning after having an encounter with brachiosaurs, which are, again, also completely animatronic. Grant except for one little scene, Grant concludes that the dinosaurs have been breeding, which occurred because of their frog DNA, being West African bullfrogs, being able to change their sex in a single-cell environment, allowing the dinosaurs to do so as well, which is actually a true thing. Proving
so I
Malcolm,
guess the dinosaurs are multi-gendered?
I guess you could say that, which of course proves Malcolm right. Unable
I
to
found the way.
Yeah. Life finds a way.
Finds a way.
Unable to decipher Nedry's code to reactivate the security system, Hammond and the park's chief engineer, Ray Arnold, played by Samuel Jackson. I always forget he's in this movie.
Samuel motherfucking Jackson! Enough is enough! I have had it with these motherfucking dinos on this motherfucking island!
They go to reboot the park's system, and the group shuts down the park's grid and retreats to an emergency bunker, while Arnold heads to a maintenance shed to complete the rebooting process. When Arnold fails to return, however, Sattler and Muldoon head to the shed. They discover the shutdown had deactivated all remaining fences and ended up releasing the velociraptors.
Muldoon, one of my favorite lines from Robert Muldoon. The shutdown must have turned off all defenses. Damn it, even Nedry never knew to mess with a reptile. He's like Popeye there. He's just like,
let's see. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Muldoon distracts the raptors while Sattler goes to turn the power back on before being attacked by a raptor herself and discovering Arnold's severed arm. Meanwhile, Muldoon is caught off guard and killed by the other two raptors. Clever girl. Before encountering
probably one of the most brutal deaths in the series.
Yeah. After encountering a brachiosaur and narrowly escaping the T-Rex during a Gallimimus stampede, Grant, Tim, and Lex reach the visitor center. Tim being electrocuted
and actually,
in the process.
I want to point out, like, they enter the visitor center and it's like, hello? I think we broke your dinosaur park.
Grant heads out to look for Sattler, leaving Tim, who was electrocuted while scaling one of the fences. His ears are bleeding. Leaving Lex and Tim inside. Tim and Lex are pursued by the raptors in another one of the most iconic scenes in the entire franchise, the kitchen scene, where Tim and Lex play a dangerous game of cat and mouse away from two velociraptors throughout the kitchen. However, the kids manage to escape.
Not to mention, when the raptor opens the door and there's that wide shot of him looking around, you can see one of the handler's hands on the back of the raptor costume.
Let's not point out flaws in the effects, you fucking Mr. Plinkett. Anyway, so the children escape and join Grant and Sattler. Lex restores full power from the control room, which allows them to call Hammond, who in turn calls for help. Grant, Tim, and Lex and Sattler are cornered by the raptors. However, they escape when the Tyrannosaurus suddenly appears and kills all the raptors. Hammond arrives in a Jeep with Malcolm, and all the survivors board a helicopter to leave the island, with Grant getting over his hatred of kids, something I never will do, thus ending the movie. So how about this plot, Jackie boy?
And the moral of the story is, Nick, when a white Scottish guy offers you to see his park, you say no.
So what about this plot, Jackie boy?
Do it with me, Nick. Do it with me.
No.
Oh, you puss.
Fuck you.
Fucking love it. Fucking great plot. I mean, like, it's what can you say? It's the definitive dinosaur movie, in my opinion. It takes everything we loved about previous films and just meshes it into the perfect plot for today's audience, for the present time. It's not cavemen poking dinosaurs with a stick. It's not explorers in the 30s finding an unknown island with dinosaurs and a giant gorilla. It's not, like guys in dinosaur suits and kaiju effects from The Last Dinosaur. It's just
God, that movie's terrible.
Ding dong! It's just taking all the best elements we love and rolling it into one amazing thrill ride, and that's what this is. To quote John Hammond, I'm sorry, this is kind of a ride. That sums up the movie. It's a ride. It's a thrill ride, a non-stop roller coaster. And how appropriate, given afterwards they immediately went into production on the Jurassic Park ride. So, great plot, great characters. Again, this is probably one of my favorite quotable movies, because I can quote this thing to a T. Like, there's so many great lines. There's so many great shots. Every shot, every scene, perfectly paced. There's not any moment in this film where I'm bored off my balls. Like every dinosaur scene is spectacular. I mean, yeah, you can tell it's really CGI. Okay, I'll let you. Yeah, I'm not there. Yeah, it's not. It's true though. I'm not bored out of my goddamn blue balls. I am enjoying every single moment in this film. And I broke Nick. You're welcome. That's what it was, though. I just made that up. Bored balls. I broke him, guys. I'm sorry. Now, don't start laughing there, Nick. You don't want to end up using Nedry's raptor screech when he gets the shaving can. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and review this movie with me, and all of a second laugh behind.
Oh no!
Oh, I finished debugging the phones.
First
Well,
crap.
I'm trying to think of some more Jeff Goldblum thing. You may remember to wash your hands before you continue reviewing the movie. You sound very tenacious.
Now that is one big pile of bullshit.
His career in a nutshell.
Bored off my first crap of shit. Now bored off my balls.
I just made that up. I just know the way I said it too. That I'm now bored off my balls. I think I've officially broken it, folks. It's kind of appropriate. He finally gets to reviewing Jurassic goddamn fucking Park, and he fucking breaks. I break him. I broke him. I'm so sorry, audience. This is my Jeff Goldblum impression, and I don't know what. I think we've got ourselves a bit of a laughter story.
Oh shit!
Look at the way it laughs. That's in the same way again.
You just made me vomit. Thank you.
Well, hey, you're like Tim in the tree. It's like, Tim, are you okay? Throw up. Oh, that's nice, kid. That's very nice.
Moving on. What were we talking about? Oh yeah. So my thoughts on the plot.
Balls. Bored off my brontosaurus balls.
I'm gonna put you on mute. Stop it.
Okay.
So my thoughts on this movie's plot. Yeah, pretty much all that Jack said. It's the definitive bringing dinosaurs back to human civilization story. Caveman dinosaur movies, fuck them. No, there's no good ones. Any movie where dinosaurs come back in a post-apocalyptic future, that's just stupid. And there's only certain ways that there's only so many stories that are made where dinosaurs are brought back in human times that work. Aside from Jurassic Park, I actually do think the first two Carnosaur movies work okay. But outside of that, Jurassic Park.
There's a series of movies you can review, man. There's a series of movies you can review.
My stomach hurts now. And yeah, what Jack says, this is the definitive bringing dinosaurs back to civilization plot.
It's not even that. It's the definitive dinosaur movie. Like, you know what I also like to describe this? This was, for a lot of people, like King Kong was the dinosaur movie. Jurassic Park is this generation's King Kong, in my opinion. That's how I see Jurassic Park. It was this generation's King Kong. How appropriate, it came out 60 years after.
What have they got in there? King Kong?
Yeah, well, they got in there. And that's another thing. As I grow older and watch it, I notice other things that I really appreciate even more.
Do not mention King Kong in this review.
I won't.
We will talk about King Kong in the sequel.
Okay.
For worse.
And the Godzilla reference.
No. No, no, no. No. Moving on. So, let's get to the pros and cons of Jurassic Park. I will go first because I got a lot to say about this. See, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pros. Pro number 1. What?
While you were doing that, I am getting a drink.
So pro number 1 is that this movie has a truly, truly, truly amazing cast. We'll talk about the characters in order on the cast segment. Sam Neill as Alan Grant. Fantastic. In my opinion, this is Sam Neill's best movie. Haven't seen that many movies with Sam Neill in them. I've seen
He's
this.
Good as Merlin. I remember that. He's good as Merlin.
He was decent as Merlin. He was also good in Jurassic Park 3. He was
one of
good.
the only good things about that movie.
Fuck off. He was good in Bicentennial Man. Actually, he was amazing in Bicentennial Man. And he was good in.
Isn't that?
Yeah, he was in that, and he was pretty decent in Event Horizon. But of the 5 movies that I've seen him in, hands down, his best performance has got to be Jurassic Park.
And what's great is, too, what I love, too, is that he was based solely on the film's paleontologist, Jack Horner, who is Canadian, by the way.
I knew that. Sam Neill is acting
He's kind of a hack, though, now.
He's acting his ass off in this performance. If he feels very natural portraying Alan Grant. He feels like he knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to paleontology. He feels like he knows dinosaurs in and out like the back of his hand, but he also is just whenever he's completely taken off guard by
he's a savage.
He is also a little bit of a savage. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but like it feels like Sam Neill did do his dinosaur research to prepare for this role. Whenever he realizes that there are theories that paleontologists have had throughout the years about dinosaurs, and he'll realize, hey, these theories are kind of crap, or this theory may have been right. Like the one that always sticks out to me, and I only noticed this when I started watching this movie's subtitles, is the warm-blooded, cold-blooded theory when it comes to dinosaurs. Paleontologists have debated for years on whether or not dinosaurs were warm-blooded or cold-blooded. For those who don't know what warm-blooded or cold-blooded means, lizards nowadays are cold-blooded. They are not able to maintain a body temperature. It slowly diminishes as their day goes on. That's why a lot of times, actually no, lizards, when they first wake up after a night of sleeping, they will bask in the sunlight in order to warm themselves up. And as the day goes by, they will periodically stop and bask in the sun so they can warm themselves up again. They're not like humans who have an internal body temperature. Humans are warm-blooded creatures because we have hair that, well, humans don't, but warm-blooded animals have hair to keep their internal body temperature in. Lizards do not. However, it's established in this movie that the dinosaurs are warm-blooded, which would make sense, especially with something as large as a sauropod, being a brachiosaur. If it was cold-blooded, it would not be able to maintain that massive size and that massive height without constantly fainting because of its cold-blooded nature. The blood would not be able to rush from the bottom of its feet, from its heart, to the top of its 37-foot-long neck. Just would not be possible.
It is also the first dinosaur movie that broke away from the stereotype of dinosaurs being lizards and making them where they're actually related to birds.
We'll talk about that later. So I really do feel like Sam Neill, he did his research in paleontology to prepare for this role. He really committed himself to his performance in this film, and my God, does it pay off. Laura Dern.
I think one of the scenes I want to point out, one of the scenes that I find was genuine with him is when he first sees a dinosaur, a real dinosaur. That feels like real shock. Like, if you were to process seeing that shit, you'd be like, well, obviously the glasses part is a little over dramatic, but no, the part that sticks out for me is when he walks out and he points out and he just says, "It's a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur."
Yeah, that's great too. So Laura Dern as Dr. Ellie Sattler, also fantastic. And one of the best things I can say about this character, she's not a goddamn Andaro. She's not a fucking damsel in distress.
She doesn't need to be. She's a totally different character.
She's not a damsel in distress. She is a very proactive character in this movie. She has times when she's scared. Yes, that comes off as being natural, in my opinion. Like the scene where she first... Zip it. Let me talk. I have a lot to say about this. The scene where she encounters the Velociraptor in the no, it wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a bunker.
The
power grid. Okay. Or the power outlet, power shed, whatever the fuck you call it. When she encounters the Velociraptor, when she escapes, and when she closes that gate door behind her, when she's just like she slumps against the door and then she's just crying uncontrollably. That is what a real person would do, I feel, when they've received a shock that big. When they're in a safe place, they would just slump to the ground, and the adrenaline and the shock will catch up to them, and they will just break the fuck down. Aside from that,
the part I love is where the part. Sorry, just the reception's pretty bad.
Go ahead.
The part I love is when she literally has, she's the power's back on. She's like, "Mr. Hammond, I think we're back in business." Raptor just pops out. That was actually planned to be legit. They never told her that was coming out. So when she's reacting to that, that's real. It's literally coming out of her. And the line I love is she's so over the top. So not over the top. She's so legitimately shitting her pants, her pantaloons. She's literally shitting her pantaloons, just going, "God damn!" It's so, and that's one of the scenes that flipped my shit as a kid.
It's an effective jump scare because you do not expect it. We'll talk about the scares in a little bit, but aside from that, I definitely also do feel that Laura Dern did also do some paleontology lessons, but in preparation for this role, she comes off as being a legit paleobotanist. And when the dinosaurs are running amok, and when they're trying to fix the power grid, she's a proactive character. She, one scene that kind of embodies this, or not embodies, that's stupid, embodies this is when she takes the two walkie-talkies, and John Hammond says to her, "Well, I'm in your," she puts the walkie-talkie in his hand. "We can discuss sexisms and dangerous situations when I get back. I'm doing this, bitch. Fuck you." It doesn't come off as being it doesn't come off as being feminist in the slightest. It just goes to show that she's trying to prove herself as being a proactive character, or a proactive person in this situation. Yeah, and then she tries to play
the same part again in The Last Jedi, and it sucks.
Was she the purple-haired chick?
Yeah, in The Last Jedi. Yeah, she's playing the same fucking character, and then it fucking blows. Did I just blow your balls off? As I was not bored out of my fucking balls. I guess in The Last Jedi, what she said was true. Dinosaurs eat man. Women inherit the galaxy. I broke him! Yes! And you know what? In that sense, you see her in The Last Jedi. You know what the one word you say from Jurassic Park? Showtime! Showtime! Just imagine, like, she's being a cunt this whole fucking Last Jedi, and then you just cut to Poe Dameron. Showtime! Showtime! I have to go away now. Goodbye, everybody. Review's over. Review's over. I finally. I killed him. I broke him.
Oh, Laura Dern, why? Moving on.
You didn't know that.
I did not. Moving on. So overall, Laura Dern does fantastic as Dr. Ellie Sattler. Jeff Goldblum as Dr. Ian Malcolm.
Well, I've been quoting him all this fucking
And if you
reviews.
don't stop with the ums, I'm going to put you on mute for the rest of the review.
Well, there it is.
Aside from all the ums, which I don't know if that was intentional or not, Jeff Goldblum overall is fantastic as Dr. Ian Malcolm. He's better in the sequel, though, I will admit.
A little bit. The quirkiness is gone.
Quirkiness, yes. Sarcasm, no.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jeff Goldblum, I don't really have as much to say about Jeff Goldblum. I've only seen him in, well, now 4 movies. I've
Jurassic
seen
Park, Lost World, Independence Day, and Fallen Kingdom.
Fallen Kingdom, Independence Day, so 5, plus The Fly.
I remember actually the one movie that kind of threw me off that he was in was Cats and Dogs. He was in that. He was the dad. And I'm like, is that Jeff Goldblum? It is. And you didn't know he was in that either. Actually, here's a funny fact. When they were planning to make Batman Triumphant, the 5th Batman film, the rumor was he was going to play the Scarecrow.
That would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah, I know, right? You see, Batman, you cannot stop me, Batman.
Moving
I will
on.
destroy you with my ear gas.
So overall, Jeff Goldblum does a fantastic job as Ian Malcolm. I'm going to save my true thoughts on him for when I get to the sequel. But for now, overall, Jeff Goldblum is fantastic. Couldn't have picked a better choice for the character. Richard Attenborough as John Hammond, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Pure Walt Disney. Pure Walt Disney in him.
Yes.
And I love him for that.
Yep.
Michael Crichton had actually once said that the way he described Hammond in the book and in the film was the dark side of Walt Disney.
Especially in the book.
You know what? Yeah, he's not too far off. But Richard Attenborough is just you know what? As the person who created the park, he is the heart and soul of this film. The heart and soul. Like, well, all the characters are like highlights and comedy and action stuff. He's the heart and soul of this entire thing. And I think next to Malcolm, he's my favorite character. Just because he's like Santa Claus. You know, he's just this warm-hearted guy who just wants to bring joy to children, like joy to people to the world with these amazing things, but then he realizes, fuck, I've done the dumbest goddamn thing in my life. Right?
Yeah, and
you can see that he pulls that off so well.
When he realizes the giant mistake that he's made, he doesn't try to like dodge the blame or like turn the blame around to somebody, or he doesn't try to like lessen the impact of what's happened. He realizes, oh, I've done a big mistake.
And even then, he's very optimistic. That you don't see that from even people in general anymore. Nobody's optimistic. I try to be optimistic every day. Hey, if something goes wrong, it's like, hey, we'll do it again next time, you know? But with him, he's trying so hard to keep his composure and keep himself from being upset. And you can see that with that. I mean, in the book, he's a fucking scumbag.
Oh, yes. Hammond, I mean, there's a lot of differences between the book and the movie, but in terms of characters, I think Hammond might be the biggest difference. Kind of debatable, but
he's like in the book, he's like a mix between Walt Disney and Dr. Frankenstein. Like the
very appropriate.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Very appropriate. But still, overall, Richard Attenborough does an absolutely fantastic job as John Hammond. The cast, I mean, Bob Peck is decent as Robert Muldoon. Doesn't have much to do, but he's still a decent character. Martin Ferrero as Donald Gennaro. Slimeball, yeah.
Here's the weird part. This is where you realize this guy's a scumbag. In the beginning of the movie, before they get to the island, he's just trying to be like the basic lawyer, just trying to do his job, just trying to be like, hey, you know, I'm trying to help my client here. But when he first sees that dinosaur, he doesn't see Amazing Wonder. He doesn't see Amazing Wonder. To quote an episode of Johnny Bravo, I'm sorry, Carl, I can't see you. I have huge dollar signs in my eyes. He goes from lawyer to complete capitalist in a span of a second. And even the scene in the dinners in the lunch scene.
$2,000 a day, $10,000 a day. Don't want to cater to the super rich. Oh, sure, we can have a coupon day.
Yeah, he's already thinking about how can we make butt fuck tons of money that we can just stuff up our ass. And how much? Let's try to get a bunch of money to the point where we can use it to wipe our ass. Like, he's just thinking so goddamn hard how to make money. And everything coming to him. You know, like, he went in going, he came out.
Butt fuck tons of.
You know, like, that's another thing that kind of just a little bit unrealistic. If you're trying to occupy yourself on the toilet, the whole thing collapses, and you look at, like, say you have constipation, and you're trying to go take a shit, then the bathroom breaks down, and you see nothing but a Tyrannosaurus Rex right in front of you, all your fucking bowel syndromes would just shit out like a civil rights movement. It'd just be like, you just see a T-Rex, and you just be like,
like a fucking civil rights movement.
hey, you would be shitting Amber. You would be shitting so much at the sight of that T-Rex. You'd be like, oh, and like, you wouldn't even be thinking about the fact you're going to eat it. You would be thinking, oh, thank God, my ass was hurting like crazy. Thank you. Okay, you can eat me. I won't taste like crap.
The last two actors that I want to talk about is fucking civil rights movement.
The kid.
Is Joseph Mazzello and Ariana Richards as Tim and Lex. Steven Spielberg, goddamn, can you cast good kid actors? Unlike a certain somebody.
No one likes little kids, especially if they can't act. That's a kiss of death for your movie. That is very true. Yeah, that's the thing I love with Spielberg movies. Like, you know, like, when you see a movie and you see kids, you're like,
oh, God.
Oh, no. But then when you see, Steven Spielberg presents, you're like, Okay.
Okay.
I can actually, I will give this a shot because he knows how to cast kids.
Yep. Hell, one of my favorite of his movies is Hook. Most of that movie's cast as kids.
And that's the thing, like the quote Blast the 60, he knows where the kids is at.
I don't have as much to say about them other than they know how to act. I will admit some of Tim's acting in the like the first scene that they're in is a little cringy. Like, I read your book and all the stuff preceding.
Well, the way it came off, like, all Spielberg really did was tell him that just imagine you're meeting a movie star. Like, you're meeting Kevin Costner. Like
he's starstruck. I get that. It's still a little cringy, I will admit.
But also, you know what it is? It actually does come off genuine because I have met fans who are exactly like Tim, who, like, especially online, where, like, they finally see you and they're, like, they finally, like, find you and they say, hey, I'm a big fan. And for me, I love my fans. But at the same time, there's times I'm trying to work and then they keep constantly asking me questions and I'm like, I don't want to answer them. Like, I'll put scene at something and then get back to you later. But I feel that that's another scene with Sam Neill I love because he's just like, oh, for fuck's sakes.
I hate kids.
Now, so.
Anyway, so once the T-Rex scene rolls around is when Tim's acting gets a lot better. And for the rest of the movie, it is pretty slow. There's only a few scenes where Tim's acting is a little cringy, but I can get around it. Steven Spielberg knows how to cast kids. So that being said, with the cast finally being done, talked about, I still have 8 more pros to go. So, pro number 2 is the music score by freaking motherfucking John Williams. Hands down, favorite John Williams score. Fuck Jaws.
What about Star Wars?
Blow Star Wars out the water too.
Oh, it's tough.
I know it's tough.
I know it's hard to really choose a favorite, but I would say for John Williams, Star Wars and Jurassic Park are his best work. Best work.
I give it to Jurassic Park for me. I love this movie's fucking score. It's awe-inspiring. It's heartwarming. It's scary. It's tense. It's uplifting. It's everything that you could ever want. And John Williams freaking nails it.
Holy shit. It's a goddamn dinosaur. Love it. It's so fucking good.
Yeah. I mean, what can I say about this movie's music score that I haven't said already? So, what's my favorite score? Or favorite part of this movie score? I like
the credits theme.
Credits theme is pretty nice too.
Because, like, especially when they're in one of my favorite bits, it's very subtle, but it's in the helicopter when they're just like, they've just had this big adventure, the sun's coming up or the sun's coming down, and they're just all tired, and they're like, let's go home. That's how I can describe that bit of the theme. It's like, it's pretty much saying, yeah, we had fun, guys. Let's go home. It just has that feel to it that, only he can bring to the table. And, like, it also, it kind of reflects on me because it also, later on in life, when I look back on the movie, it just brings, like, those little chords in that helicopter bit always bring back, like, memory of just, like, waiting for the movies and playing with the toys. The score for me represents childhood as a whole, honestly.
I honestly don't really know what my favorite part of this movie's score is. The opening theme is pretty good too. It's very creepy, actually. I would say the T-Rex scene, but there's
movie technically has a theme.
Huh?
This movie pretty much has 2 Jurassic Park theme songs.
Yeah.
Really think about that.
I would say the
you don't normally
T-Rex
get a
scene,
theme
but
that gets
I
2
actually
years,
think
like
there
1.
wasn't any music that played during the entire T-Rex scene. I could be
Not
wrong.
the entire T-Rex scene, but it chases the Jeep that it played music.
The T-Rex chase, there was music, but for the T-Rex attack, I think it was completely devoid of music. So I'll talk about that a little later as well.
It's also appropriately mixed together because, like, when you want to hear there's 2 separate themes. There's the awe-inspiring theme, the kind of cathedral where it's like da 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 da. That's great. But then you get more of a heroic theme, I find, with Jurassic Park, and that's good luck getting the same target of your head. It will be in the weeks or till you're dead. So
Moving on.
There's like a victorious theme, and then there's like a awe-inspiring theme. And it's and when the T-Rex comes in and just takes the raptors, and you hear that da 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 da, like yes, yes.
Yep. So overall, the music is amazing. Pro number 3: this movie is paced perfectly. On this most recent viewing, I actually think this is another example of a slower pace that I like. It's not completely slow.
And I'm not bored off my balls.
It's not completely slow. There are times where it's cinematically paced, but especially in the first half of the movie does have a slower pace. And it works, at least here, because it's effective build-up. They build up to the reveal of the dinosaurs, which is actually, I used to hate it as a kid, but when the Dilophosaurus wouldn't appear that first time they were driving through, now I'm glad that it doesn't because it's effective build-up. And even
and the other thing still I want to point out, too, that I like with the pacing is that it also, again, revolves around the sound of the film. Because, like, you get your musical moments, but then there's great moments where it's really quiet. And especially, like when you get to when they're going on the tour, like the first time they go to the T-Rex paddock, and
all you hear is the sounds of bugs and birds.
And all you get is the atmospheric ambience of the jungle. That's like
all you hear is bugs and birds.
I know, but it's like there's something about the Jurassic Park jungle sounds, even like the movie's great for its sound design, but even that's just like
it's eerie,
so
T-Rex
eerie and just kind of mysterious. Just kind of like, especially when it's clouded and fog and stuff. It's like, ooh, it's like a rainforest.
T-Rex doesn't want to be fed; it wants to hunt. He can't just suppress 5 years of gut instinct. One of my favorite Sam Neill lines from this movie. So yeah, the pacing overall is very good. The second half of the movie is when it starts to become cinematically paced. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. It's just perfect. It grabs your attention and it keeps you there for the entirety of the rest of the movie. There's no slow bits. Well, there is, but there's no painfully slow bits. When a movie is slow, there's no fluff and there's no filler and there's no fat to trim. 3 Fs.
It's not too fast, but it's damn furious.
So yeah, moving on. Pacing is perfect. Pro number 4. These two are a little more like me-centric, but this is just something that I noticed in more recent watchings of the movie. First pro number 4 is there is some really good techno babble in this movie, as I like to call it. When they're talking about, this is mainly these 2 pros surround the ethic. A lot of the techno babble, it feels very, very like it feels genuine. It feels like actual legit science that could actually potentially exist nowadays. And it feels plausible. It kind of takes a Star Trek treatment to it. I don't like Star Trek, but one thing that I will always credit the creators of Star Trek for doing is that they went so far above and beyond to make the science of Star Trek as feasible as possible. There are very few flaws
It is most logical.
In Star Trek science. There are very few flaws. I don't know that for certain for Jurassic Park scientists or science, but me, I mean, I do know some scientific technobabble stuff because I used to study paleontology. I mean, my grandmother was a nurse for 42 years, so I do know some medical knowledge from her. And I do watch a lot of sci-fi, so I know some technobabble stuff on my own. And from what I've researched and from what I've read, and I've had science teachers throughout high school, of course, and they all have seen Jurassic Park. So I've asked some questions, and it seems like the science in this movie, I mean, it's pretty out there still, but it doesn't feel so far out there to the point where it's not like Star Wars. It feels plausible. It feels like, yeah, if we have enough technological advances in the future, we may have stuff like this. And that's all because of Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton has been credited for really, really trying to make the science in his movies as feasible as possible, especially for Jurassic Park, since it is science fiction. It's pretty heavy on the science stuff. Same goes for the Andromeda Strain as well. Though I'd say this movie is more sci-fi than Andromeda Strain is. So that was because of Michael Crichton.
I want to bring that up too, because like I want to point this out because like especially like Michael Crichton, yeah, he did boost the interest in not only dinosaurs but genetic science, and we're at that stage where the genetic science that Jurassic Park financed is possible. Not necessarily with dinosaurs, because it's actually been scientifically proven that it's pretty much impossible to create a dinosaur unless you combine a crocodile with a fucking rhino and make a triceratops that way. Mm. But to the point, for example,
we have cloned before.
Yeah,
we have cloned a sheep.
A 60 Minutes interview about a guy who plays polo, whose horse collapsed and died. So he cloned his horse 16 times in the span of 4 years. And then a lot of business people came up to him and said, "You're able to do this. This is a miracle. Can you clone a human?" And he said, "Yes, we can." And then they offered him so much money to say, "We want you to do a clone a human." And he said no. Because I guess in some ways he takes from what Malcolm said. Yeah, but the scientists were a little preoccupied with what they could do something.
This leads me into pro number 5, is that this movie does have thought-provoking subject matter. Not in a shove down your throat bullshit way like Shin Gojira being the bullshit way, or a shove down your throat way like Godzilla vs. Hedorah. This does have thought-provoking subject matter, but it's very subtle. That being, once again, the ethics of cloning, and it makes you ask the question, if we had the technology to clone a human or bring back dinosaurs, it's not whether or not the fact that we could, the question is, should we? Should we bring back these animals that have been extinct for millions and millions and millions of years? Should we bring back these super soars and bring back these ancient creatures in our present day in the way that our ecosystem and the way that our food chain is nowadays? Should we do it? And I think the answer to that question throughout the way that this franchise goes is no. Yes, but no.
Yeah, I mean, like, it is pretty risky. But here's the thing. And to that point, now that we know that human cloning is possible, there's no stopping it. There's no stopping it. Like, they're going to want to use it for military application. And to quote a wise frog puppet, "Begun. The Clone War has."
Begun. The Clone War has.
Yeah, that's actually going to happen at some point. It's going to happen. So it's not the fact that we could or should. It's the fact it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
It's inevitable for us. And as we'll find out, it's inevitable for this franchise. More on that. So, pro number 6. This movie has some fan-fucking-tastic suspense.
Oh, God, the suspense still gives me nightmares.
I'm not a big fan of suspense. Watch my Halloween review. I gave that movie a 0 because of its suspense, quote unquote. When a movie is wholeheartedly riding solely on the fact that it's a suspense film, I find it to be boring. I find it to be incredibly boring, incredibly tedious, and incredibly slow in a bad way. With this movie...
Well, in a sense, this movie is a follow-up to Jaws. It is a follow-up. It is kind of a follow-up. It's almost the same formula where you focus on all these great characters and you don't show the true monster until halfway through the movie. Really think about that. The T-Rex doesn't show up until halfway through this film, much like the shark in Jaws. So it's the same formula.
True. So there's really good build-up to the reveal of the dinosaurs. Like I said earlier with the Dilophosaur scene. If the Dilophosaur did show up for that scene, the build-up would have been kind of ruined. Part of me thinks that maybe if they showed like if there was a wide shot of the cars passing by, and then the camera stopped, and then you saw like a bush rustle, and you saw like maybe like the top of its head, or maybe like the part of its tail move by. That would have been kind of an effective moment. But we don't see the Dilophosaur, and that kind of makes us wonder, is there an actual Dilophosaur here? And then there's the slow reveal of the T-Rex. And this will lead me into... Because, see, this one and the next pro that I have are kind of tied. This movie has great suspense, and this movie has great scares. So this leads me to the reveal of the T-Rex. One of my all-time favorite moments in all of cinema history. You start to hear this low booming sound. Camera zooms in on 2 glasses of water that are vibrating whenever that sound is made. Slow shot of Gennaro with his eyes opening up slowly. And as you hear that booming sound get a little louder and a little louder, then he whispers, maybe it's the power trying to come back on. So Tim looks outside with his night vision goggles. It's still quiet. All you hear is the sound of rain hitting the car. And then, boom, you see a bloody goat leg on the top of the roof. Then you see where's the goat? Boom, there it is. Thunder crashes. You see the T-Rex's hand slip off one of the electric cords. And then the camera slowly zooms up. You hear the T-Rex growling, and then you see the full-on reveal of the T-Rex's head as it gulps down the goat without even chewing. And then you see it move its head out and then look down angrily and menacingly at the people below.
Like, goat, fucking sheep is fine to say.
Hands down, one of the greatest reveals of a movie monster in existence.
But remember, Nick, they're not monsters, they're animals.
Shut up.
Hey, blame Sam Neill for that shit.
Moving on. So yeah, this movie has great suspense, and it has some fantastic scares. Many people find the Velociraptors to be scarier.
I do!
I personally don't.
Do you know how many goddamn nightmares I had with those things chasing after me? I had one maybe about, 5 months ago. They're fucking PTSD shit. And especially for a young kid, aged like 3-4 years old, seeing this movie. Oh my god!
Not to say that the Velociraptors aren't scary in this movie. They certainly are. One of my favorite shots in the entire movie, once again, is when Tim and Lex are eating. And then there's just Tim looks up after he takes a spoonful of yogurt. Then he looks at, let's see, let's have this out.
Looks at Lex, and she's got the Jello. The Jello shot. I love that. Just no, she's shaking.
And then Tim turns around.
Dude, I love that too. And you can hear the sound effect of.
Then you see Tim turn around, and then you see the shadow of the Velociraptor as it's hissing and purring. And then Tim turns around and gasps, of course. That shot gives me the chills every single time. It's not the fact that you see the Velociraptor, you see its shadow. That's always creeped me out. Always creeped me out. And then, of course, the scariest scene with the Velociraptors is, of course, the kitchen scene. Another example of how good this movie's suspense is. I like the cat and mouse angle that they play with this movie as well. How much that they're trying so hard to be quiet, yet even though these animals have super acute hearing and super acute smell, like they're so afraid that whatever move they may make will give them away. Whatever sound they make will give them away. Anything they may do.
They're almost like child catchers.
Yeah.
You know, like you can tell in the raptors' faces, like even if they can't see them, they're like,
"We know they're
kids, here. We know you're here, and we're gonna get you. We're gonna get you, and we're gonna eat you." Oh, you know, it's almost like they're predators, but this is like some child predator shit. They're not gonna eat those. They're not only gonna eat those kids. They're gonna fuck those kids. Oh God. They're not called raptors. They're called raptors. Oh God.
So yeah, this movie has great scares and great suspense. For a PG-13 rated movie, good nightmare fuel for you.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Pro number 8 is the dinosaurs in this movie are awesome. Of course. The two highlights, well, kind of three actually. The three highlights being the Triceratops, which was an actual fully grown, life-size Triceratops that they used with that animatronic. We're not going to talk about the special effects right now. We're just talking about the dinosaurs themselves. But outside the Triceratops, the obvious two highlights is the Velociraptors, and for me personally, it's the T-Rex. I love the T-Rex so goddamn much. This is the definitive T-Rex. And every movie that came after Jurassic Park has essentially every T-Rex that has been in another dinosaur movie, it's a T-Rex copy from Jurassic Park.
Well, even then, it's like, I mean, it's not only that, it's just the design has never been able to match. Like, the closest to other T-Rex, the two T-Rex designs that I can think that equally match the one from Jurassic Park are from Walking with Dinosaurs and 2005's King Kong. You know, but those are V-Rexes, but Jackson always considered them T-Rexes, but they're great designs. Everything else, Land of the Lost and all this shit, they suck. They're terrible designs for the Tyrannosaur. And on top of that, this T-Rex has definitive vocals. The definitive vocals. You cannot think T-Rex without thinking,
you sound like a pissed off Wookiee.
That has to go towards the sound designer of what's his name? What's his name? I have it in my head. Well, the sound designer, right? The guy who did it. It wasn't Ben Bird. It was some other guy. But he basically, for the T-Rex, took an elephant, a baby elephant sound, and just pitched it high and low, and just created the sound. And he added some lion and some crocodile, but it was mostly a baby elephant, believe it or not, pitched way down.
Go figure.
So, you know, like, can you imagine in Peter Jackson's Kong if they decided we're not going to create our own T-Rex sounds, we're going to use the sounds from Jurassic Park? I think that actually would have been kind of cool.
Yes and no. So yeah, the dinosaurs in this movie are absolutely spectacular. They're so fun to watch. It's just fun to sit back and just look at.
I mean, the Brachiosauruses. I mean, even the Gallimimus. Like, like all they did was just take one model and just manipulate it countless times. And back then,
That's
like,
a common thing to do.
Pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm. That's a common thing to do. So finally, pro number 9. Pro number 9 is the amazing special effects.
This was the pinnacle of what special effects could do for the industry.
The animatronics we'll talk about first. The animatronics are perfect. Perfectly detailed, completely life-sized, specifically for the Triceratops and the T-Rex. Velociraptors look really good too. Even though that's not the actual Velociraptor look. But the T-Rex looks absolutely fantastic. They built a full-sized T-Rex animatronic. Hydraulic animatronic T-Rex. Fully detailed, fully maneuverable. I mean, Carlo Rambaldi, fuck you. Eat your heart out.
No, even before that, they had to sculpt it life-size. Can you imagine how heavy the fucking clay sculpture would have been?
Probably a couple tons.
The skin? Holy shit! Apparently they had to literally raise the roof to make it where the T-Rex can fit in the workshop.
Yep. And for those who are wondering, I'm just going to throw this out there as a fun fact. The largest T-Rex specimen ever recovered is a specimen that is nicknamed Sue. The female T-Rex.
Sue.
Huh?
I know Sue. I saw her once when I went to the film museum years ago. I saw her when they just dug her up and they were building her.
Mm-hmm. To date, Sue is the most complete T-Rex skeleton that has ever been recovered. 90% complete. And she was a fully grown female at 40 feet in length, and she stood 12 feet tall at the hips.
Is it also true that the female T-Rexes were bigger than the males?
Correct. Female tyrannosaurs were larger than males. I don't know why. That's a very common thing in the animal kingdom, and I guess it was common for dinosaurs too.
To store the kids, probably.
Maybe. So the attention to detail to the T-Rex animatronic is it's impeccable. Fan-fucking-tastic work. The Velociraptor animatronics, too, are also very, very, very well done. Very well detailed. I kind of feel like they had an easier time with the Velociraptor since they were smaller. Not to say that their workload was easier. Well, kind of. Since they were smaller, there was a little bit less to work with. But still, there was a lot of detail.
They were not only hydraulics, like hydraulic wire puppets. They actually built a guy in a suit. And just out of foam.
And puppets.
It looked great.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same design they did to make the Queen Alien in Aliens.
Mm-hmm. What do you expect from Stan Winston?
And by the way, Stan Winston, this was his magnum opus in his work.
Yep.
In his entire body of work, Aliens, Terminator, Predator, everything had led to that for him. And bravo!
There's also the Triceratops animatronic. Fantastic. Even though it doesn't move that much, in the context of the movie, it's fine. But the detail is fantastic. The way it moves, I totally buy it as a real Triceratops.
It was also done in the same tactics they did when they did Jabba the Hutt and Return of the Jedi, where most of it was underground.
Yep.
Like all the puppeteers were actually underneath the thing, operating it with like bicycle wires and hydraulics. And
ironically, 10 years.
You never notice that on the. You never see that in the film.
Ironically, 10 years after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. So.
And the digital effects. Moving on to that. For 1993, this is still some of the best CG that I have ever seen, especially from an early 90s movie, where CG was still kind of in its infancy. A lot of hard work.
There was Young Sherlock Holmes, The Abyss, and Terminator. Mm-hmm. That was it.
Mm-hmm. And though I will admit there are a couple of shots where the CG looks a little dated. On this most recent viewing, I did notice the composite shot that they used for Alan Grant and the Brachiosaur in the beginning. That was when I noticed, okay, that's a composite shot. But
a little bit of the animation too, the skins are a little stretched, especially with the raptors in some shots. The skins are stretched, but aside from that, man,
the CG does look fantastic. Like one scene where I completely buy it as being real creatures is when the T-Rex attacks the Gallimimus. That's all CG, and it looks flawless, especially for it being out in the daylight. They kind of pulled it. They kind of pulled a Rodan, where they use this somewhat semi-technology in the daylight. That was a very ballsy move. At night, you easily could have...
And two things I want to bring up in that. Two things I want to bring up in that. One, the major critic for the reason they look so photorealistic is not just the animation, but also the lighting. The lighting really hides any of like the really stretchy areas of the CG, and you can see that through this film. It's like they use lighting tricks like in the animated puppet to make it where it looks real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why in the daylight some scenes it's a little stretched, but other than that, if it's a little dimmed down in the darkness, it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is too, that because this was the pinnacle of CG, this was the beginning of a new age of technology. You gotta remember, they were originally going to do stop motion for this fucking thing by Phil Tippett, and then
wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked, but you can also tell that when Phil Tippett was doing his part of it early on in the animation, he was improving stop motion where it looked blurred enough to look realistic. But it wasn't until he saw an early test screening of the CG dinosaurs, he turned to Spielberg and he said, "I'm extinct." And Spielberg used that line in the movie when they go up the stairs of the visitor center. It's like, "We're out of the job. Don't you mean extinct?" Phil said that to Spielberg. They put that in the film itself.
Gotta feel bad a little bit for Phil Tippett. Like, this movie made him lose a job.
No, not actually. He stayed on as the supervisor for all the animators at ILM, because it was passing on the way to do animation into the digital age. So it's like, hey, you want to know how to properly move an animal in some way? Okay, we're going to show you how to do it with this puppet, and now we're going to translate that over to the computer. You know, that's another thing. They combined the two tactics with something called the DID, where they made a stop motion puppet that was wired into the CG T-Rex to achieve shots. So he was the dinosaur supervisor, and as the meme says, you had one job, Phil, one fucking job.
So with all of these fantastic things to say about Jurassic Park, do I have any cons with this movie? No, I ain't got a damn thing.
I have one. Only one. This is my only problem, and it's not even a part of the film. It was groundbreaking when it came out. Everyone loved it, but and there's nothing wrong with it. It's still a perfect fucking movie. But did you ever notice some minor technical errors in some of the film? Like, there's a few continuity problems.
Yeah, especially with the Velociraptor hatching scene. There's a couple continuity errors with that scene. I even noticed that when I was a kid.
Yeah, like the robot hand that's holding the egg is there, and then on the next shot
keeps moving, and then it's gone. Then the egg moves around, and then it's a little off.
I mean, even in the 3D re-release, you know, you think Spielberg would have digitally added the hand in there of the egg for continuity reasons.
Nope.
You know, and there's a lot of continuity errors in the film that you would notice. Even like when Nedry's looking at the message from the guy at the dock saying, "The captain says we gotta go, we gotta go." You know, it's like, I thought I made people should be 18. You'll notice that when he's taking that video call, this is the days before Skype even. Remember that too. This is the days before Skype. Something interesting. The the video screen he's watching is actually a video, and you can see it playing. So he's not talking to somebody; he's watching a video. And even in the editing, they couldn't crop that shot a little bit to not show the. You know how, like on a YouTube video, you have the little timeline that goes forward. You see that in that shot.
I never noticed it.
Go watch it again; you'll see it.
I'm gonna go watch it again when I'm done doing this review.
Also, when Dennis Nedry is stealing the embryos, many dinosaur names are completely misspelled.
True.
Yeah,
Very
that
true.
kind of bugs me. So, but other than that, not really much. Really,
I truly think this is one of those specimens of a perfect film. Granted, yeah, it does have a couple minor issues here and there, but goddamn, did they really try to make this movie as flawless as possible. Bravo,
I would
Steven
put
Spielberg.
This film up there with the likes of both King Kong, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and even a film I just watched today on the big screen, Lawrence of Arabia. These aren't films. These aren't just perfect films. This movie's not just a perfect film. It's an experience. And it's really an experience. If they ever bring this back to the big screen, you have to do yourself a bucket list favor and see this film on the big screen. It's that good. It's an experience film. And there only a few films can have the plaque of saying this movie is an experience. Jurassic Park is one of them.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. With what are we going to rate this movie? Of course, we're going to give this movie a perfect solid gold 10 out of fucking 10. What the hell else can I give it?
Perfect fucking gold 10 out of 10. A 10. My fucking balls went from bored to gold. Yeah, fuck. 10 out of 10. It's
Where's Goldmember?
It's not only if in the definitive dinosaur movie. It's not only an experience, an amazing film. It's one of my favorite films of all time. In the top 5.
Mine too. And where's Goldmember?
What do you mean Goldmember? I love gold! Mr. Nick Jackson, can I paint Jurassic Park gold? It's kind of my thing, you know?
How about no, you crazy Canadian bastard? Okay, so...
I forgot to add the A.
That is my review for Jurassic Park. Perfect solid 10 out of 10. What the hell else can I give it? So, post your motherfucking comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Look forward to the next review where I talk about the miserably underrated sequel that is The Lost World Jurassic Park. And as always, go out and make your own theme park, but use animatronics, not real dinosaurs.
Spare no expense.
Spare no expense, but not real dinosaurs. It's a mess. And when the Pirates of the Caribbean break out, the pirates don't eat the tourists. And I will see you in the next one.